Good morning. I'd like to call the special board meeting for the Village of Cary for Saturday, January 23rd, 2020 to order. We do have a quorum of village board members in physical attendance at the meeting to this morning. However, as authorized by the Illinois Open Meetings Act, village board members Cavelli, Kraus, and Weinhammer will be participating remotely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Roll call, please.
Cavelli? Here. Betts?
Here.
Collier?
Here.
McAlpine?
Here.
Weinhammer? Here. And I do not see Kraus listed on the...
He is trying to connect. He is having a little difficulty, but he is trying.
Yeah, Trustee Kraus is having some technology issues here this morning. So if he's not able to attend, I just texted him and told him that we'd circle back and have a conversation after the meeting.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll now move to the open forum where the public is invited to make an issue-oriented comment on any matter of public concern not otherwise on the agenda. Anybody here have anything they want to talk about before the meeting? Okay. We'll go ahead and close open forum at 9:02. We'll get right into our capital improvement program. Jake?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, Village Board. Excited here to present the CIP for this year to you. We got a lot of great projects to go over, and we'll dive right in. So our agenda for today, it's pretty straightforward. We're going to go over why we do this, talk a little bit about the projects within each department, and then we're going to land on a slide here where we look at the very powerful slide where we look at the revenues that are available to us and the expenditures that we have here. So our budget schedule for this year, this is our first budget workshop meeting. Our second one, which is a review of the general fund and all funds for that matter, we got scheduled tentatively here for March 20th. Final budget consideration, we expect that to occur in early April. Purpose and objectives for today. Most importantly, we want to inform you, the Village Board, about the projects that we have, both current and future. Answer any questions that you have, receive your feedback. Again, there's a lot of information that we're going to go over today. If there's questions that come up, I'd be more than happy to have conversations. Could grab a department director if we need to drill down on specific projects. We're going to have focused discussion on the roadway network and also our downtown improvements. We've had good discussion with the Village Board regarding the projects that we have planned within the downtown. We've got some very aggressive infrastructure plans regarding the downtown. Today we'll have some numbers to put towards that and give you a little bit more information. No final decisions are going to be made today, just like in past years. This is purely discussion only. So what is a CIP? Excuse me, what is a CIP? So this is a 5-year plan. Again, I mentioned this previously, but identifies our current and future capital needs. These are all estimates. So the costs that you see in here are estimated costs. We try to do our best with the information that we have, staff working with, whether it's our architects, our engineers, or other consultants, to try to get that as the numbers as close as we expect those to be. We compare those estimates, and like I said earlier, we're going to land on a slide here later to finish up our presentation to show the overall cost of what we expect that 5-year cost in addition to future costs, and then the revenues that we have available to us so that we're able to make informed decisions. Each year, and as the Village Board knows, we make changes to CIP, which is why we review this with the board each year. There's a few projects that we've moved up. If you've had a chance to review the slides, you'll see that we've, especially in the water and sand fund, some pretty significant expenditures that we've had to move around just due to some maintenance concerns that we have. Okay, I'm not a big quote guy, but I actually ran across this about a week ago. I thought it was very timely, the importance of planning, and this is why we do this. Whether you're at home finances or working for the Village of Cary, you want to have a plan, and especially a plan for large capital expenditures. Again, more just homegrown reasons why we, excuse me, why we complete the CIP. We talked about, this being an important planning tool. I'm not going to go through every one, but starting at the top, this is our largest, these capital expenditures are the largest expenditures within our budget. So it's important not only to look for this current year, but can you turn the, I'm sorry, Mayor, the volume? I think we forgot to turn that on. Thank you.
Details.
It's important for us to look, not only here at this 1 year, but have that vision of the horizon. And that's what this is. This CIP is our vision. And then finally, the other one that I wanted to touch on that sometimes we gloss over is that the CIP and these other planning tools are looked on favorably by rating agencies. Mike and I had our ratings call with Moody's here earlier this year before we issued our debt for the new building. And that was one thing that we heard from Moody's was they were very complimentary and impressed with the financial planning that's occurring here at the village, the comprehensive planning. But this is just one example here of the reasons why we do this. Okay, just wanted to touch on a few of the accomplishments here for this current fiscal year. And again, we're not done, so we're going to continue to add to these accomplishments. But most importantly, and starting at the top, is the grant funds. And the board knows that we are very aggressive. All of our directors do a phenomenal job of seeking grants. We have almost $1 million this fiscal year that we're plugging into our infrastructure. And that's outside money. That is purely outside money. It doesn't include the money that we have here. So a phenomenal job by our directors for chasing grants. The other item that I wanted to note is the municipal center. This is a project that we've talked about for probably 30 years. It might be the biggest project in the history of the village of Cary. And I commend the board for taking the steps necessary to bring this project to fruition. And then finally, the other one that I wanted to mention is Cary Lake at Rotary Park. We opened that earlier this fiscal year. Phenomenal park. It has, even though it's a young park, it is a crown jewel already of the park system here in the village. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Courtney, I guess, to get a little vocal variety in our slides.
Hey, Courtney.
So similar to last year, we did send out a CIP survey through our website, Cary News Weekly, as well as the Facebook page. And as of Wednesday, we had received 193 responses. Similar to last year, roads and water sewer infrastructure were seen as the highest priorities. And 45% actually chose roads as the #1 choice. One thing to note was the increase in responses who chose bicycle and pedestrian improvements as their #1 choice. Those are the survey results this year.
Courtney, sorry, you said that it was put on Facebook and where else?
The website and Cary News Weekly.
Okay, great, thank you.
So we'll jump right into the administration and community development projects that are being proposed. Here you'll note the building permit software for next fiscal year. This is to update and replace the MSI software that we currently have, which is quite outdated. We also are proposing a website update for the future. One driving factor for that is our current website is not mobile compatible. And in today's world, that is almost becoming a necessary feature for websites. Those are the highlights of this slide. And then back to Jake.
Okay, with the police department, we got a few projects that we'll just spin through. There's not a lot of new projects. Board may have some questions about body-worn cams. There's been a lot of discussion, with the legislator related to body-worn cams and that being implemented here. We have a number of 50,000, which the chief has already started doing some research on the costs related to body-worn cams. it's a little bit more than this. So we'll just say that that may include a grant. So we're already starting to think about that. The other item that I want to comment on and mention is the consolidated training facility that we're working on here behind the scenes with other McHenry County law enforcement agencies and the county itself, the Sheriff's Department. A lot of work continues behind the scenes on that. We are still grinding on that project. We still believe this is a great project for the village. We've had to kind of hit the pause button a little bit just due to the pandemic, but we are still grinding on that. Any questions regarding the police projects?
Nope, looks good.
Okay, thank you.
So for fleet and equipment, we will be continuing the lease program that was approved last year. This improves our cash flow and also takes advantage of equity on the short-term half-ton pickup trucks that we are currently leasing. So this next slide will have our summary of these costs. So for fiscal year 21-22, we will be releasing 8 light-duty pickups, and then we'll have ongoing leases for the 5 police interceptors and 1 medium-duty truck. Additional vehicles will be added into the program each year as needed, just based on the age and condition of the current fleet. So next year, no new vehicles are added.
All right, now we're going to move into our facility maintenance and improvements for our 3 existing core facilities. Obviously, first and foremost, as Jake mentioned, the new Cary Municipal Center is a big part of our C.I.P. and our workflow currently and into the future for this next fiscal year. That project obviously is part of our current budget, and we are still expecting substantial completion this fall. We will be carrying in our C.I.P. A nominal amount of money for unexpected repairs and maintenance to operating our current building, as the new facility won't be ready for occupancy until about halfway through the next fiscal year. And then the senior center, which is owned by the village but operated and utilized by the Cary Park District for the senior center use. For next fiscal year, we don't have any items for maintenance in the capital side currently. And then each year we evaluate the condition in partnership with the Park District to evaluate the needs, and the items from our reserve study are listed in the chart before you now. In our current Public Works facility building, our reserve study and evaluation of our facility does show we have some items in the horizon here. Over the 5-year, we have about $142,000 of work that is necessary. Next fiscal year, the items are some furniture, entry doors, some concrete work, and some asphalt pavement repairs. That's our commuter parking fund.
Yeah, we will
What fund?
jump right into this slide that lists all the upcoming projects for the parking fund. You'll notice the $445,000, which is a carryover from our Metro Depot project. That is a carryover if a invoice is not received from Metro before April 30th. Some projects are carried over from last year just due to the work being delayed. The pedestrian crossing is a carryover as well, but it is a smaller amount due to the new FHWA rail safety grant that was previously approved. With that grant, 90% of the cost will be covered, and the Union Pacific is targeting spring construction. Another item to note is the decrease in the commuter parking O&M expenses. This was reduced substantially due to the transition from contractual snow removal services to the use of seasonal labor. Due to the pandemic's impact on parking utilization and revenue, an interfund transfer from the general fund will be required to cover the fiscal year 2021-2022 expenses. Any questions on these projects?
Nope.
Now we'll shift our attention to the downtown. The first project, and the village board is aware of these from our previous committee discussions and our recent ITAP, the Illinois Transportation Enhancement Program grant application that we made last October. It's our understanding that those applications are under review currently by the Illinois DOT, and hopefully we'll hear some results with regards to our application sometime this spring. As you might recall, it's a bikeway corridor improvement with a link from Hoffman Park to the west all the way over to the neighborhood near the Fox River to the east over on Janice Road. And in the middle of the project, it also includes the improvement and modernization of the traffic signals at High Road and West Main Street. If the grant is successful, we'll have a 20% local share, so 80% of that $1.7 million project would be covered with outside money. Another project I'm sure everyone's familiar with, our West Main.
And, sorry, I do have a question, Director Morimoto. So when will you find out if you guys are awarded that grant?
As I mentioned, they're under review now at the DOT. They typically announce their grant awards in the springtime or early summer at the latest.
Okay, great. Thanks for filling all that paperwork out.
Sure. And with West Main Street reconstruction and streetscape, this is a project also from one of our previous committee discussions. We are proposing to fund this work with the Rebuild Illinois Bond Grant Program money. So you might recall the state of Illinois, as part of the increase in MFT funds, the motor fuel tax funds that goes to the local agencies. Part of that increase does go to a pot of money that we'll call the Rebuild Illinois Bond Fund. And in issuing some debt with the state, they were able to allow some eligible project categories to be funded with the money. It is coming currently in 2 installments per year. So by the end of 2023, we'll have our full $1.2 million from that program, which is roughly the amount of cost and construction aside for the local share of our ITEP project that we just mentioned with the bikeway corridor and the streetscape work shown here. Another facet to that same West Main Street project would be the intersection of Spring and West Main, which would be the east end of the downtown corridor there. With the cost there to improve the intersection, extend the catenary lining from the other project over that intersection, and through some bid alternates, we hope to have some good results, and also include some decorative paver crosswalks and a possible treatment in the center of the intersection featuring our new village logo. And that work would be funded through the transfer to the capital fund from what we are anticipating to be some surplus funds in the building fund. And the last major project in the downtown, which kind of anchors the east end of that corridor as well, is the redevelopment of the former depot site. So we presented previously, we would be proposing a new civic area and a depot plaza on that site. And based on the current engineer's cost estimates from the preliminary design that's been done so far, we do anticipate the ability to get most of that work done within a budget we've established, again, with a transfer to capital fund from the building fund surplus. We would need to include some of the elements as bid alternates, again, looking for and hoping for some favorable bid results. And those elements that we have tagged as bid alternates would be the shelter structure on the, we'll call it the west end of the plaza. This is turned around here. And then the bicycle elements of the project itself. So we have the bicycle racks and then room for future bike repair stations that were suggested at the committee meeting. And then even room, if there's opportunity, maybe sponsorships for a bike sharing station. Those elements are also eligible for RTA grants as part of the downtown strategic plan study that Director Simmons has been working on. So should the bid results not allow us to accommodate these two elements here in the initial project, we do hope to get those covered at a later date, maybe with some RTA grants. So before we move on to those, any questions on the three projects I highlighted here?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I love the idea of getting sponsorships, and I think my question is what sort of items downtown are you trying to I just like.
Couldn't hear.
Trustee Cavelli, we're having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah. Repeat that, please.
Could you repeat what you said?
Yeah, can you now?
No, you're kind of fading in and out.
I can move. Better?
Yeah, that is better.
Okay. I was gonna say, I love the idea of getting sponsorship, acknowledging that in the downtown area, which the bike racks, were there any other opportunities that you have sponsorship on there?
Can't hear.
Backing up here a bit. Yeah, there's some different elements, especially on the bicycle side and the street furniture side. There's some different bike racks and some other furnishings that could go into the recently widened sidewalk area on the opposite side of the street, as well as the main plaza area itself. There's also not wanting to put all our eggs in one basket on the one end of downtown. The rest of the streetscape project is also redeveloping enough of the sidewalk and parkway areas for other elements that could be added in the future. So additional bike racks or bike elements,
I don't know, benches.
furnishings on the west end. There's plenty of space as well, and even west of High Road as well.
There's some features, just to add to that too, there are some features, and I think, Eric's alluding to it here, that could be added over time. Our goal with this is to, and I hope this answers your question, Trustee Cavelli, is we want to get the nuts and bolts, the concrete, the brick, pavers, pavement, get that done. And maybe there's some things that can follow up behind that from donations or, as Eric said, sponsorships. So those opportunities could exist.
All right, thank you.
Outside of our capital improvement program, we've also been developing some other concepts that we just wanted to share with the village board to see if there was any interest in these. They're not currently programmed in our 5-year CIP, but they're items that we could look towards in the future or near future, depending on your direction and your desires. First one, we do have a current property at US 14 and 2nd Street that the village owns. It has been marketed for sale for quite some time. Currently, there's no structures on the site. It's just a grass area that is mowed and maintained currently. As an interim use, one option could be utilize it as a temporary food truck pop-up park. Some of the features here could be actually built in-house with our own forces or included in some of our other construction programs like our road or asphalt patching program. So the idea would be to provide a place where if there's interest for encouraging food trucks to come into town, just have another outdoor area where they could park. We have plenty of tables that our staff has been able to construct that were used last year in the downtown and on Spring Street. And then the parking lot itself, depending on the configuration, could be utilized by the purchaser of the property down the road. Or if a more interim parking solution is desired at a lower cost, there's other services that could be considered as well, like gravel. They do have some aesthetic drawbacks as well, but what's shown there in our current cost estimate for the concept would be a paved asphalt parking lot.
We're always looking to provide options here for our residents. Food trucks are, I guess they could be debated both ways. There's some sensitivities too of the impact that, a food truck, of how that may impact our brick and mortar restaurants. I mean, as the board knows, our restaurants have been challenged here during the pandemic. They've had to adapt and do delivery, and many of them aren't set up to do delivery. But again, we also, like I said, want to provide choices for residents. So we, we're going to continue to talk this through and work the problem from a staff level, and see if there is a happy medium to provide the options, but then also respect and understand the challenges that our existing brick and mortar restaurants have gone through here over the last year plus.
On this kind of project, couldn't you cut down some of the costs and charge the food trucks for like a usage fee if they came and used it, and permit fee or something?
Yeah, those are things, if the board was interested in this concept, that we could look at. Again, it sounds like.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear the question of a comment. Can that be repeated, please?
Yeah, I asked if the food trucks, if we did a option like this, if they would have to pay a permit fee or some usage fee to come use this parcel to absorb some of the costs.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
There are things too that we could explore of maybe the path or the parking lot is gravel
Right.
too, to reduce our overall costs. So if the board was interested, and again, this is a concept that we've just been kicking around and Eric and Courtney have put together, we can certainly bring this back and chat at a later date with the board about it. But food for thought for now.
No pun intended.
Yeah, well.
No, there was.
And another project which we're labeling as a concept is one that we previously presented when we were discussing the Rebuild Illinois Bond Fund grant as a Spring Street Minerva concept. You might recall this was redeveloping the north half of Spring Street, just south of West Main Street, a roadway that could then be easily converted for shared use with pedestrians and easily closed for events or similar to what we had most of last summer, our alfresco alley and Spring Street concept for closing the road for outdoor dining in the downtown. It's currently not in our 5-year CIP based on the direction and our priorities for the other downtown projects, but we're just leaving this one just in the radar should other funding opportunities come down the road. So in summary, this kind of shows the breakdown of the 4 main projects that we're looking at over the next 5 years in our CIP. Like we mentioned, broken out by funding source, the Rebuild Illinois Bond Grant projects, our downtown bikeway corridor and West Main Street. And then the building fund surplus projects would be the West Main intersection at Spring and Depot Plaza. Before we move on to the next section, do you have any questions on downtown?
I got a question. You keep referring to surplus building funds. Can you explain that, please?
Yep. As a part of our building project, the board has been saving to build the building. This has gone on for many years. So fortunately, with the interest rate environment, we were able to issue $11.2 million in debt. And our project, and great work by the staff, here we're planning for that building, including a small portion of contingency. That project is 11.17 million. So we have some cash within the building fund that we didn't know if we need to use, but just again, with the favorable interest rate environment, we're hopeful that we can finance the whole building. So there is cash there. If our bond proceeds are able to cover the whole building project, which we think it'll be pretty darn close, we will have that surplus there and we'll be able to put it towards other projects, such as the downtown. And we've identified the downtown, talked to the board about it. It's important, we feel, to spend the dollars there. That's our focal point. We need to continue to nurture the downtown. Does that help answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
I just want to highlight this for the village board. Eric and his staff have done a nice job, and this is why we do the CIP here. You can see how these are some big projects, and you can see how they're being phased the year over year and how we plan this. So you get an idea of this is where the project is going to hit. This is when we expect that expenditure to occur. And then here's the financing and how we're going to pay for it. This is exactly why we do this exercise with the board.
And as Jake alluded to earlier, these are all based on some preliminary cost estimates. For these particular projects, they're refined a bit more, so they'll be definitely be on the concept stage. But as we get into actual final design and then the bidding process, like with every project, we'll continue to value engineer where we can and still achieve the quality and level of improvement that we're looking for. But the numbers you see here will evolve slightly, and then and hopefully to the good.
Perfect.
Moving on now to the rest of our road infrastructure and capital maintenance. This graphic here is a beautiful map that Courtney created in our GIS system that kind of gives you a good snapshot of globally across the village where we're doing our design work and our construction work for proposed fiscal year 21-22. So for next year, we're looking to continue the momentum we've had over the past several years and staying busy with some design work and construction all over town. We'll go into more detail just a sec here. So the first design project in that CIP, in that image that we showed, is a proposal for the First Street corridor. So with an upcoming call for projects expected in 2023 for the Surface Transportation Program, this would be the local portion of that STP program, we feel that this corridor would be an excellent candidate and score fairly well to hopefully secure up to $1.5 million in grant money for that work. Same program or similar program that we recently obtained for the improvements of Three Oaks Road over by the high school. In order to further bolster our scoring of that project, you do get extra points for having completion of phase one engineering, different phases of your design prior to the grant application. So we're suggesting that we utilize some of our motor fuel tax funds to start phase one engineering and get that approved IDOT preliminary design report in our books ahead of our STP application. So the scope would be resurfacing First Street from 3 Oaks to 14. And then again, to further improve our scoring with the grant program project, we would look to incorporate some form of pedestrian and bikeway safety improvements, which could be a number of different ways, which would be determined in phase one design. But the graphic just depicts, just an effort to capture kind of all the different elements in one spot or in one image. It could include on-street bike lanes or parking lanes that could be doubly used as bike routes, as well as if the cross-section of the road can accommodate it, some off-street paths in certain areas. And then in addition to that, being contiguous to First Street, we're also suggesting that we incorporate the concept of the safety improvement at Route 14 and West Main Street. At the curve there and the signal, we do have that safety issue we had noted previously in our CIPs and recommended the installation of overhead lane assignment signage. We weren't successful, fortunately, in getting highway safety improvement program grants, but we'll still continue those in the background. But as kind of another way to try and secure other funding for that work and kind of move it up in our CIP, I do feel like the incorporation of that into this project will also have some good success. This slide here shows the current state of our roadway network using our pavement condition index. As you can see, the roadway network as a whole, right now we have a PCI, so a pavement condition index of about 67.5, so which puts us in the upper end of the fair condition. So right now, looking at the graphically there, you see a lot of green and yellow and little bits of orange, which does show that our roads as a whole right now are pretty decent. I like to say probably better than a lot of roadway networks in a lot of other towns. However, we do still have about 32% of those roads, so almost 23 centerline miles that are in poor or worse condition. So those are the areas in the reds and dark reds and orange. Just as a reference, not that it's part of our CIP at this point, but if you were to try and resurface every single road with a PCI of less than 66, so all the roads on the bottom end of fair and worse, that would cost over $18 million in today's unit costs. Before we get into kind of the program itself, I just wanted to show a quick behind the scenes peek at how the deterioration model and the roadway funding model is done. The tables you see there are what are the basis for a chart you're going to see in the next slide. But the important part here is that the data and the modeling does show that a newly constructed or newly resurfaced roadway in Cary, based on our subsurface conditions and well-draining soils, we typically get about 17 years before that road progresses and deteriorates down to the poor condition. This then shows the importance of the kind of continuous attention and funding for our road programs that we need over time. So what you see here on this chart are the effects on the overall road network based on different funding scenarios. So the first one, the red line, shows that if we didn't put any money at all, and these are just hypothetical situations, of course, we put zero money at all into our roads, we would go from our current PCI of 67.5, and by 2030, we would be down in the low 40s, so well into the poor condition. On the flip side, if you pumped $1.5 million per year, which is currently well above our current motor fuel tax allocations, that would actually get us back into the good range, in the low 70s by 2030. So getting back out of the hypothetical situations, the blue line is modeling approximately what we are able to accomplish to our road network with our current MFT funding. So taking into account the design costs that we have to utilize to prepare these road programs, and also the fact that about $170,000 to $180,000 per year in motor fuel tax money is spent on road salt as well. After you back that out, we have about $500,000 per year to spend on road resurfacing. And what we do typically is try to program and save up between years. So we build about $1 million every 2 years. That just gives us a better sized project for better unit costs. But what that does, unfortunately, is show that by 2028 or 29, so within the next 8 to 9 years, spending what we spend now on our roads, we will have a road network that will progress downward to the poor condition in that 8-year time frame. The orange line right above it shows $750,000 per year, which is an approximate model of what would happen if we weren't paying for road salt out of MFT and focused all that money on roads. Still has a downward progression, of course, but it does, by 2030 at least, still keep it in the fair range. If we want to keep our roads where they're at now in the fair condition, that's the green line. It does, based on our modeling, take about $1.16 million, so over $1 million per year, about double, a little more than double what we currently receive in MFT money. We keep that network PCI static in the upper end of fair. Any questions on that? I know that was a lot to absorb and a lot of engineering talk that
A little sobering, you know, a little
Yeah.
concerning. And I know that at some point we can talk about things like looking at issuing bonds or doing something to address that. We're going to do that a little bit later on in the presentation. Because obviously I think this is something that is of grave concern for the path that we're on.
Yeah,
Can I make a couple comments? Yes, please.
Absolutely.
go ahead.
Good.
I can tell you, just based on working through the capital improvement program, working through our budget on an annual basis, that the chances of us having $1.2 million a year to dedicate to roads is virtually impossible with the other capital improvements that we hope to get done over any 5-year period. One suggestion I would make is, first off, roads are extremely important to a community. I think that can be backed up by the survey that was taken where residents feel that the roads are important. The longer we let roads go when they're in a poor condition, the more it costs us to fix them. If we're able to keep up with the amounts of money that Eric is saying are needed to keep our roads at a good quality, I think we can extend the life of some of those roads that are going downhill. One way we could accomplish that would be to issue debt.
Yep.
similar to what we did in the past for the road program that was done, I think it was like 5 years ago, where a number of roads were resurfaced all at one time. And I think it brought up our average score. We could do that same thing again in the future. The one thing holding us back is having a dedicated revenue source that can allow us to cover the annual debt service. As you all know, when we issued the bonds for the building, the interest rate associated with those bonds was very low. As Director of Finance, I had never seen interest rates that low for a bond sale or for a project of that size. Interest rates still remain very low, and maybe going forward, we could look at possibly finding a revenue source that would help us to cover the debt service on a bond issue that would allow us to take care of some of the poorer quality roads and therefore increase our average score. And I think it would accomplish some of the funding that Eric has shown we need over the next 5 or 6 years. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to provide whatever information I have.
Just so those folks at home know who was talking, and Mike did state it, I don't know if you caught that or not, but Mike is our finance director here. It's kind of hard to see who's talking behind the curtain sometimes. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah. Building upon what the finance director Descharman mentioned, that's exactly right. When you are resurfacing roadways, hitting them when they're in this range about here, in that lower end of fair to high end of poor, you're able to do it at a much cheaper cost, oftentimes with just a 2-inch mill and overlay. So just grind off the top 2 inches of asphalt and replace it with 2 inches. Once you get down to treating roads that are here in the poor and very poor and serious condition, you're oftentimes either having to do more of a 4-inch, at least typically in Cary's roadway system, a 4-inch mill and overlay. So you're having to take out and replace twice as much asphalt in the same area. Or you're having to rebuild the roadway, which then includes not just the asphalt on the top, but the removal of the stone subgrade and the supporting ground beneath it as well. So that obviously exponentially increases the cost per square yard for resurfacing and maintaining these roads. I'm going to jump ahead a little bit, and I'll come back to a couple of the slides.
I'm sorry, Eric, can
I mentioned the opportunity to consider doing a supplemental road program, and you could do it 2 ways. The first way, if you're able to find some additional funds and issue some debt for a larger, one-time road program, you could do it with the worst streets first, and just hit as many as you can, like you mentioned. Or we continue to hit those roads with our current MFT road program, that $1 million every 2 years, and you could focus that money that is borrowed on our collector roadways that are in the worst condition. So these would be the roadways that carry the most volumes of traffic, typically are wider roadways, but also it's almost looking at it from a bang for the buck perspective. The most people that travel in the village would also benefit from taking these roads and bringing them up to a better quality. But just as a frame of reference, if we were to take all of our primary roadways, our collectors that had a pavement condition in the low end of fair and worse, it would take about $6.7 million to resurface those in a 3-year program. And that program could be distributed differently depending on how much money and how much traffic disruption we're willing to entertain in one season. But having that $1.5 to $2.5 billion program is kind of the sweet spot in terms of getting good unit costs. You get programs lower than that, it's a little small end. It's harder for a contractor to put a good number forward to make it worth their while. Then you get beyond that $2.5 million, and it becomes harder for those small to mid-sized and local contractors to give us a good number. You end up with only the large firms, and oftentimes at a premium, being able to bid it. Any questions on this concept?
Eric, can we go back to the network condition at the various funding? Yes, thank you. The one item that I just want to point out to the board, and Eric had alluded to it in his discussion, is you see the orange line, it's slightly above, well, I guess maybe more than slightly above blue line of where we're trending right now. If we had road salt back in the general fund, we would be on that orange line trajectory. As I've, Mike and I have talked to the board, over the last couple of years, the general fund is stressed. And we had to make the decision a couple of years ago to pull road salt out of the general fund and pay for it with MFT revenue. That has impacted the amount of dollars that we're able to plug into the road network. So I understand the board's position loud and clear about not wanting to implement new taxes, but the decisions that we've had to make are impacting, not only from the service level of the services that we provided, but also our infrastructure. And here is where a perfect example of where we are seeing our infrastructure being impacted. We have made difficult decisions over the last 12 plus years. I think staff has been cut, full-time staff is cut by something along the lines of 35%. That, we only have so much more that we can cut out of the general fund. And so when we get that new board seated here this spring, roads, our infrastructure, and the general fund, we're going to have some direct discussions about new taxes. I know it's not tasteful, it's distasteful to talk about new taxes. We've mentioned them in previous budget presentations, but we're going to have some serious talks about it. So the other item too that I just wanted to note, just for reference, MFT revenue, our motor fuel tax revenue that we get from the state, that is based on a per capita basis. I'm not sure if everyone knows how we receive that, but it's based on population. So we see the more people that we have, the more money that we get through MFT revenue. So any questions about this before we continue?
And that motor fuel tax is also based on the amount of gasoline that is sold in the state. Obviously, as vehicles become more fuel efficient, as people, sometimes the vehicle miles traveled has been trending downward over the last several years. I think this last year's been a little bit of an anomaly because of the pandemic, and I think it actually has trended back upward a bit. But more fuel efficient vehicles, more electric vehicles you start seeing down the road is affecting that as well. Those are factors obviously outside of Kerry's control, but they are things that do impact our revenue. This slide just real quickly shows based on our current available MFT revenue, what our 5-year road program is taking shape as. So the rows in the blue are what are proposed for fiscal year 21-22. And we just had bid opening last week, and they were favorable bids. We were about 5% under the engineer's estimate of costs. So the full program was able to fit within the available funding we have rolling forward in MFT and what our anticipated revenue is for the coming year. One element I highlighted here with the caption of the plan sheet is a reconfiguration to the on-street parking on the south end of Spring Street between Cary and West Main. So what this does, it cleans up a configuration that we often have in the summertime months, and we had it extensively with the alfresco alley concept. But whenever we have this road closed for whether it's event use or whatnot, we have to maintain the southern half open for the parking lot for the residents that live above the buildings downtown here. So basically we take a one-way road that goes south, and we are for a short time making that two-way traffic. By making the parking stalls 90 degrees instead of angled, we give a better width for 2 lanes of traffic so that when we're in that temporary two-way mode, two-way traffic fits better, and then we also increase the number of parking spaces in that block. So that work was able to be fit, like I mentioned, within the current bids and our current budget.
Perfect.
Now that road program we just mentioned assumes successful grant with the STP program for First Street. If we aren't successful, that road still is going to be in need of resurfacing in the 5-year program. So it would still need to be performed and done. But obviously what that does is it takes away money that would otherwise gone to other neighborhood streets. So the net effect is that these streets in purple were previously programmed for 2026. They get moved out a year or more, depending on the bid results. This one here is just that what I showed before about our supplemental resurfacing program strategy for collectors. And since you've heard me for a while, we'll let Courtney go over the MFT summary.
So here is the summary of all that Eric just discussed. So you'll see that the First Street project is in there, and assuming that we receive the award of the Surface Transportation Program grant, and if we did not receive that grant, we would need to fully use the village's MFT funds to pay for that project. Road salt is listed in there for the full 5 years, being funded with the MFT dollars as well. So you can see just how the impact of the MFT balance is with this program.
And with those good results this week, the program is entirely in the black, which is good. We are spending within our means based on our current resources available.
And that program was jointly bid with the Village of Trap Valley as well, which did help our costs.
Perfect. Well, not that it, just for discussion standpoint, I'm just going to throw in my 2 cents here. I think the road salt should be staying in the motor fuel tax fund, because I think that we need to have a realistic expectation of what the expenditures are that should be in there. And then we can make good decisions as we move forward. So just for what that's worth, I just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
So now we'll shift to roadway maintenance, which is paid out of the capital fund. So we are proposing to hold the budgeted amount steady for these various road maintenance projects. One thing to note is that unit costs for all of these projects do continue to rise. So each year it results in less maintenance being completed annually. With the completion of the multi-year Parkway tree replacement program that was due to the Emerald Ash Borer, replacement is now going to be limited to just the dead or dying trees that we remove throughout the year. So this planting is proposed to occur every few years instead of annually, just to conserve funds and get better unit pricing. Now we will move to probably the busiest map we will see today. This map shows you the number of sidewalk displacement locations within the village based on our 2020 inspection. Our IRMA policy requires us to inspect one zone each year, but this year we were able to inspect zones 1 through 4 due to the availability of a light duty employee. Zone 5 is planned to be inspected next year, but the map does show some locations from our 2017 inspection. So the big piece to know is that there are 473 locations that are identified as moderate or high, which means they have a trip hazard of 1.5 inches or higher, and they will require removal and replacement. Many of these locations listed, that's the yellow and the green, are low or watch category, and they can be mitigated with cutting or grinding of the sidewalk. Grinding is able to be done in-house, but funds would still need to be diverted from other road maintenance if we wanted to hit this many locations, which it's over 4,000 locations. There are increased unit costs each year for sidewalk and curb replacement, but our budgeted funds are the same annually. Roughly 35 to 60 locations are able to be replaced each year based on these funding levels. But again, rising costs each year mean less locations done annually.
I'd just like to add too with this slide, I mean, the good out of this is that we have a great sidewalk network in the village of Cary, very extensive. The challenge with that, though, as Courtney's pointed out, that you have to maintain that extensive sidewalk network. So I would ask our residents to be patient. When we're doing our sidewalk program each year, we get calls of, well, you're out there, just how about you fix this? Well, as you can see, there's almost 5,000 locations that we've identified as challenged locations. So unfortunately, it's not, one area. We try to do the best that we can with the resources that we have. And again, I just ask for patience as we try and do our best to maintain our infrastructure.
And it's a challenge not unique to Cary. Every community, especially the older communities, if they were to do the city mapping, would probably have a map that was way more red and orange than ours. But at the same time, we only spend about $45,000 to $50,000 a year in sidewalk removal and replacements, which we're trying to hit all those at one time. As we show on the slide there, that's $200,000 in one shot. So it is a more marked delta between the difference between our all-in costs to fix it all and our annual costs that we have available.
So I do have a question. The low end, the yellow one, where there's about almost 1,600 spots that need to be grinded, how long do you think that'll take? I think I spoke to you about it a while ago, and I thought you said that there's almost like a 5-year waiting list for that. Is that accurate still?
Yes, as you can see, the list is quite extensive there, and with the available in-house staff we have in the summer months and one hand grinder, we're only able to hit 100 or so a season.
Okay, just out of curiosity, how much are those hand grinders?
The grinder itself, I'd have to double check the exact number, but I want to say it's probably in the $10,000 range.
Okay, I'm just thinking of trip hazards and things like that. Okay, just thinking out loud, if a resident was to fall on the sidewalk because it wasn't properly maintained, are they able to sue the village because of that?
That's their choice. I mean,
No, I mean, I understand that. I'm just asking if it's a liability.
I don't know, I guess how I'd answer it is liabilities exist in, well,
Everything.
I don't know if I'm comfortable at answering that right now.
Okay, that's fine.
I believe anything is possible.
I'd be happy to have a conversation with you offline about that, Trustee Weinhammer.
That's fine. Okay, so in my opinion, I don't know how the board feels, and I understand this is just a budget meeting, so we're not making any decisions on anything right now, but if there's any way that we could prioritize things like that, I think that would be really good.
Well, we've got just a couple things, I guess I mentioned. We've got the grinder that Director Morimoto mentioned, but as far as I know, we need staff members though too to operate the grinder. And we've had to make some cuts within staff, and so we don't have as many bodies within the Public Works Department as we did, say, 10, 15 years ago. So we don't have the resources to allocate to this that we used to have.
No, and I understand, I'm just voicing my opinion.
Thank you.
And that's where in our budgeting, even within the constraints of that $55,000 per year that we have in the CIP, that 55K is for sidewalk removal and replacement and sidewalk cutting, and that would be done by an outside contractor. So we have that ability to outsource some of these lower, half-inch to 1.5-inch trip hazards with that cutting process. You can't cut anything higher than that, can't cut any sidewalks that have a displacement higher than that, because otherwise you end up with less than half the thickness of concrete left. But obviously every cut we do across the sidewalk is exponentially cheaper than the full removal and replacement of one or multiple squares of sidewalk. But again, it's a balance of the dollars. For the more cutting we do, that's the less removal and replacement we do, and vice versa.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so this next slide here just shows some projects from previous CIP discussions. that we have listed. One highlight is the US Route 14 sidewalk repairs. This, we believe, should not be deferred too much longer. Municipalities are typically responsible for sidewalk maintenance along US Route 14 per longstanding agreements with the state. The cost of sidewalk replacement along Route 14 is about equal to an entire year of our sidewalk maintenance budget. And Eric has some photos here of that sidewalk.
You can see that it's been ground and cut as many times as we can, but we're running out of concrete left to maintain it and Band-Aid it, take the Band-Aid approach at this point. So the full remove and replacement is inevitable.
And so it is recommended that we address this separately from our annual sidewalk budget. And then the Bristol Way pavement heaving does continue to be monitored, and it remains in our short-term list for the CIP. All right. So next we can go on to the flooding mitigation improvements, and we'll see this map, which I know we've seen before. It's based on the 2017 village-wide flooding analysis. We have nearly $11 million in unfunded improvements. This slide here does have the list of those projects. It does include additional drainage projects that have been brought to staff's attention after the drainage analysis from 2017 as well. All right, back to you, Eric.
Now we'll move our attention to.
Sorry, I do have a question. Can we just go back to that slide, please? So I know we've had extensive talking about the flooding in certain areas. I'm just looking at this spreadsheet. Is there anywhere that shows, I see the study area numbers, but how it's being prioritized?
Not in here. Within the study itself, it did show the magnitude of, you might recall, magnitude of each location. Obviously, some of them had, I'll call it tributary areas. So that basically, some of the improvements affected or helped varying numbers of properties. That was just a little bit too complex to capture in one slide. But I will say that some of the ones that we, based on that report, that were higher priority, we do have shovel ready and are designed, either because of higher priority or low-hanging fruit, so to speak. I believe it was the Crest Drive improvements, the Park Avenue drainage improvements, the Veteran Park detention outlet and downstream storm sewer improvements, and the Krebs Avenue improvements have all been fully designed. So we're actually ready to go to bid should the funding become available for those. Other ones will require some more design before we can move to construction, but those were ones that were realistically attainable, which is why we went forward and passed CIPs and getting the design done.
Okay, thank you.
And then the green ones are the ones that were completed already in 17.
Thank you for pointing that out, Eric. Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't we apply for a grant related to the Park Avenue project and just weren't successful?
Correct. With the Rebuild Illinois bond money, the state had a separate section of that money that went for shovel-ready infrastructure. They call it their fast track program. We did put it in an application for it, but unfortunately it did not quite make the cut there.
So just because, and the point I want to make is just because it says future unfunded, that doesn't mean that we're just forgetting about these. As the board knows, we're always seeking grants, and if things come up, we look to see what projects we think might fit best with those. Thanks, Eric.
Having these shovel ready is very important. We should expect the grant opportunity about the new presidential administration and the possibility of a new infrastructure build down the road. There could be other opportunities for projects that are ready to go and ready to go quickly. So we do have ourselves positioned for getting our some of our projects out there. Was Rotary Park. We'll go over some current projects that have been in the work, as well as some other concepts and other ideas, just for your consideration, should we want to advance the development of the park itself. The first one is a project that was started last year, so we're doing this one in-house. We've been constructing a new access trail from the parking lot down to the water's edge, where a new dock and kayak launch will be placed. So it'll make it much more convenient for people to bring their paddle boats, their kayaks, canoes, and paddle boards out to the water. So we do anticipate sometime this spring, early summer, getting the rest of that work completed, mainly its final restoration and the placement of the crushed limestone surface. For a smaller project, fairly easy to complete, is the installation of new park map information kiosks. So at least 2 and probably a third over at the trailhead at Hoffman Park, just to give the users of the park a good look at a map of where they are on the site, what's out there, and then any other information or alerts that we need to put out there for the users. And we anticipate either purchasing these or possibly building them in-house. We have some pretty good workers at our disposal, fortunately, with our staff here. This is just an update for the project that's in the works through a sponsorship by the Cary Grove Rotary Club. So they are proposing and right now doing some fundraising for a shelter over at the parking lot area. So this is just for graphical representation. A shelter about 30 foot by 60 foot fits very well on that site and mirrors, in this case, the design that the Park District put over at Caper Park recently. But that design and exact configuration is to be determined. Our first future project that we want to get your input on is the concept of paving the trails around Cary Lake at Rotary Park. So with the nearly over 3.5 miles of trail that we have out there, it would take about $550,000 to pave that. I will say that seems like a steep cost, but when you compare probably the 7-figure drainage system and ditches and culverts that were put in prior to our assuming operation of the park, I do think that that money that we've shown on the maintenance is definitely helped our department. It was well spent there. But I think the desire to pave the trails has been out there, both from the public and from the staff perspective and the village board perspective. One option to do that may be to do it in segments, with the yellow segment on the east side of the lake probably being a likely candidate to focus possibly on hitting earlier, because it does connect our parking area and the Clausen Road over to the Hoffman Park trailhead, which with the receipt of an ITEP grant by the Park District, they are going to start construction this summer on some extensions of trails throughout that park, which includes connecting the dog park over off West Main Street, down through Hoffman Park to Rotary Park, and it also brings the trail over to the existing Route 31 regional trail to the west, and connects it as well to the Fox Trail neighborhood on the existing path network. So that first segment, based on our current cost estimates, could be as much as $223,000, but should we get some detailed design and do some compaction testing on the current gravel out there, that cost could come down, because there could be, it was designed intentionally this way, some savings by just being able to utilize the existing base and pave right over it, as opposed to having to construct a full path of stone and asphalt. So these numbers are conservative and do have a full path construction cost there.
Just going back to that last slide, Eric, I think that once the Park District completes their paving of trails, because folks may not understand, and nor should they, the boundaries between the Park District property and the village property, that there will be some questions of, well, why did they stop paving, at the border of Rotary Park? In anticipation of that, that's why we're showing this segment 1 option. I think that we will be hearing from some folks that once the Park District, as I said, paves theirs, that, well, why didn't they continue? So I want us to think about that segment 1, to strongly consider that and circle back and have more discussion about it.
I got one quick question.
Yes, sir.
Once it's paved, Eric, What is the ongoing cost for maintenance on the paved path versus gravel? If you don't know, it's fine to tell me later, I guess.
I don't have a dollar figure, I guess, right in front of me, but I will say, just from a staff time perspective, it will be reduced. We do need to take a little extra care and make sure that as the fines and the gravel age and exposed to weather and stuff like that, they do tend to wash down. So we need to kind of treat the surface just to make sure it stays walkable and firm. Obviously, with the asphalt, you will have to do some repaving and patching over time, which is more expensive than putting new gravel down, but the frequency that you have to do it is far less. So I would say there'd be some labor savings in that regard.
Thank you.
And snow as well. Now that we're keeping the park open year round, and you'll see later in the slides that we're looking into the possibility of maybe needing a trail groomer, because you can't really plow this gravel trails, with your standard traditional plow blade and, scrape it to the bare gravel, because we'll do too much damage. So right now the thought is to keep it, let it become packed snow, but be walkable, not too deep. And obviously when the paths are paved, we would have the opportunity to plow it more traditionally and get it down to the pavement itself.
Is the money for this coming from the general fund?
No.
This would be the Land Conservancy Fund.
Land Conservancy Fund, okay. And then,
Yes.
is there any way do you guys have anything that says what we have total in the Land Conservancy Fund? That's my first question. And then second question is, back when Meyer gave money to the Park District, what was that money for? Was that for connecting paths, or is
That was for path construction.
okay?
And then the Park District basically took that money and put it towards their local share of building all these paths here.
Yeah, they got a
It's for the
grant.
connection here, but they put it towards the whole thing with the grant.
And we did not receive anything for paving, right?
Correct.
From Meyer? Okay.
No, Meyer would probably say, well, it was in the $7+ million we gave you. That would probably be their answer. But to answer your question, Trustee Weinhammer, no, we did not get any direct funds for paving. Your first question, there's slightly over, I think, $950,000 in the Land Conservancy Fund.
Okay, and then where do we get future revenue for this fund?
Well, unfortunately, there's no, the interest rates aren't helping us, so our interest income is not as good as what we would hope on that almost $1 million. But Eric's got some slides here to go through some public-private partnerships that we're starting to explore. So those certainly could be a possibility for us going forward.
Right, but at this point, we don't have a source of revenue for that fund.
We do not.
Well, that's why we wanted to kind of conserve that Land Conservancy Fund so it can continuously pay for itself over time. As we finish the construction of some of these major projects, the ongoing maintenance will drop substantially. So the initial investment is a little bit heavier than the ongoing maintenance for years to come. So that's why I think it's important that we keep our eye on that Land Conservancy Fund so that we're able to provide the services that we need and the maintenance that we need going forward.
Did we answer all your questions, Trustee Weinhammer?
You did, and that's a good point too, Mayor Koenig. Thank you.
Okay, Eric?
Well, the paving of the trails is right now at least in a feature category. We are recommending the expenditure of some funds in the next fiscal year for the extension of electrical service from the existing common power lines along Clausen Road into the parking area. So this will involve some trenching and underground lines and a transformer and control box over at the near the parking lot area. What this does is it gives us flexibility for other future improvements down the road, things like connecting to the future shelter, so it has some security lighting, or some other amenities down the road like illuminated floating fountains that can be put out in the water as well. So that power does have, I think, a good advantage down the road, but especially from the site security side in particular. First of the, what Jacob mentions, potential public-private partnership, and also has some dual purpose for police and public works as well, could be the option to install a structure or more of a garage or a shed, so to speak, over at this corner here of the parking lot area. It can not only serve as a storage area for some equipment that we feel are important for the security, police patrol of the site, but also our public works routine maintenance inspection of the site as well. So I suggested down the road a utility terrain vehicle, which is essentially a side-by-side ATV, but would be have a back row and a storage area, so it could function, like you mentioned, for both police and public works. But that structure could also double up as a rental site if we could find a private sector entity that'd be willing to operate a paddleboard, canoe, and kayak rental area.
One thing about that, in conversations with Jake regarding that structure there, that, you know, I think it's a great opportunity for us to capitalize on some public-private partnerships there, that I would almost like to see the size of that structure doubled, or have another one that would be just isolated for a potential vendor, so that they could house any type of canoes, kayaks, paddle boards, or something in there, and we can incorporate some sort of a rent obligation, and leaving our equipment untouched by somebody else. I think that would be a good investment for that particular building.
Here's another one that has potential sponsorship opportunities. This is more of a decorative element, maybe a fun one for children, but our new village logo kind of lends itself well to a little mini hedge maze that we put in the parking lot area. On a more grander scale, with a sponsorship idea in mind, this is just an example of a dock system that run across online. Our current manufacturer of the floating docks and the kayak launch that we have out of the park has the ability to create floating boardwalks with the same types of systems, and it could create a nice, interesting focal point and destination for the east side of the lake and the park to have a circular floating boardwalk out there. This could be fitted with the kayak launches, so if you were to launch your boat from the parking area, you could paddle out here, hop out of your boat, grab a snack, hang out, do some fishing or whatnot, and get back in your boat and head back to the parking lot.
We're already thinking about summer.
Yep.
And this is another one that was previously shown in our CIP and Rotary Park use discussions earlier. Again, another candidate for public-private partnerships are the adventure park concepts. These are just some other elements and some other facilities around the country that can lend themselves very well to the topography and the area we have over at Rotary Park, but also are somewhat unique and would not compete directly with the outdoor amenities that exist in Cary or McHenry County for that matter. So in summary, what we're suggesting, at least at this point, is a 5-year program heavily focused on, obviously, the nuts and bolts of maintaining what we have out at Rotary Park, but with the exception of recommending that we prepare for the future, get the electrical service extended out to the parking area, and then the some equipment for our maintenance of the park. This is knowing that we are going to have some continued winter use down the road. That snow grooming drag that I showed in the slide earlier would allow us to much more easily keep the snow levels on the trails down to where they're walkable. And the other aspect you can't really see here is that on our operating costs, we're able to reduce those slightly because we're proposing through our sanitation fund purchasing a new skid steer with tracks as opposed to wheels. And that's needed primarily for our maintenance of the sludge drying beds over at the plant. But that piece of equipment would have some dual purpose and ability to attach a brush cutter, so basically a tall mower attachment to it, which then allows us in-house to do the maintenance mowing of the park instead of spending what was a pretty significant amount for the last time we had to have that done. And it is part of our maintenance plan that's required to keep these keep the native vegetation healthy and not full of weeds. Rotary Park.
Any final Rotary Park questions?
That's great.
All right, so this CIP for the Water and Sanitation Fund, it is an update based on the break period study that continues through 2023. Our first recommendation is actually to move Water Tower 4 rehabilitation from 23-24 to fiscal year 21-22. And this recommendation is based on an inspection performed in spring of 2020, just based on recent interior and exterior issues that inspection found. This shift would be possible with the deferral of water main replacement work and moving that into the next rate period. That water main replacement work is the Bright Oaks water main replacement. This deferral is also recommended due to the temporary water service shutoffs that would be required during this construction. We believe they'd be better suited to a time after the COVID-19 pandemic has ended, especially with the high number of residents that are working from home currently.
Courtney, sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
You mind going back one more slide? Thanks. So when you're talking about the engineering and construction of this water tower, you're talking about having it completely redone. It's not just a painting of it, because right, the painting of it's like about $100,000. Can you tell me a little bit more about what's involved with this?
So painting would be
Included?
a large portion of that, yes. But then also some interior and exterior, not only facade issues, but touch-ups as well. Eric, I think, has the report in front of him.
Yeah, it's when we talk about rehabilitation, what's driving this, and obviously the aesthetic side of the tower, I mean, that's important, and you can tell just from the amount of mold and some of the surface coating starting to peel away and exposing the primer beneath that just visually it needs help, but not only visually but structurally. We're not talking about things that are a safety issue. It's more of things that we need to address now while they're just relatively inexpensive rehab versus reconstruction costs. So things like, especially in the interior of the tower, there's coating and fittings and railings and seals and valves that need to be replaced. So more of the working guts of the tower itself that are visible to every time we turn the faucet on and flush the toilet and look at the water tower, but are important facets of it. So of that $700,000, a little less than half of it is for the painting itself, and the other half is for the structural work and the modifications and rehab that need to occur.
Okay, so just backing up a little bit, I thought that the painting of it, when we discussed things in the past, was like $100,000. So is it a lot more to paint these water towers then than I had thought in my head?
I'm wondering if that 100,000 was if we were just to do touch-ups rather than the entire tower.
All right, thank you, Courtney.
Yeah, for frame of reference, Water Tower 3 over on Carol Algonquin Road, that is a much shorter tower than this, but it had some other more complicated rehab work, being an older tower than what we're talking about here. But that painting and rehab was, I want to say, the neighborhood of, maybe John Stein might remember, I think it's about $300,000 or $400,000.
Oh, wow. Okay, great, thank you.
I'm sorry, it was probably more like 500,000. I'm thinking. But this is our tallest tower as well.
Okay, well, that's eye-opening for me. Thank you.
So then the other Water Tower 1 rehabilitation, we are suggesting would be moved to fiscal year 25-26. And that is similarly driven by that inspection from spring of 2020. It looks like this work could be deferred until the next rate period.
Yeah, the items and needs here on the rehab side are needed. but we feel that they have a much better chance of not causing any issues operationally for us in the next 5 years relative to what's over at Tower 4.
So the water meter replacement program, due to the pandemic, was suspended for 2020 and calendar year 2021. The program will resume once that pandemic has ended, and we are targeting completion for 2025. So we have adjusted our numbers here for the next 4 years.
And that was purely based on a decision we made to just help maximize the safety for our staff and for our residents both. If we can avoid going into people's homes right now during the pandemic, that is definitely the preference.
This slide here just shows some more projects listed for the drinking water system. One to highlight is the continued fire hydrant replacement program for the next 5 years. And then also the next water sewer rate study will be needed to be performed in 2022 to determine those actual needs beyond fiscal year 23-24. And then this last slide for the water system just shows primarily well and tower facility maintenance. And the other key piece to highlight is the asset management budget planning software, which we are proposing to be split with the sanitation fund. This would allow us improved tracking and planning for our utility infrastructure and is in conjunction with the next water sewer period rate study.
With the complexity of our water and sanitation operations, the sheer number of pumps and motors and valves and control systems involved in the water and sewer system, it's astounding. And while we're managing it as well as we can on a spreadsheet type basis, this will help us better organize and optimize the spending and the timelines for those replacements of the assets.
This next slide just highlights the sanitation system projects. Again, that asset management budget planning software is in there to be split with water. You'll notice the sanitary sewer lining is planned for the next 5 years. That's where we hit different parts of the village. And then we are proposing a new backup generator at the Hillhurst lift station and to complete our SCADA monitoring installation at all the lift stations. The CDS lift station decommissioning is budgeted, but it would occur once the sewer infrastructure at the Selkie property is completed. And Eric did mention the tracked skid steer. It is replacing a 21-year-old backhoe that we use at the sludge drying beds, and it would also be able to be used at Rotary Park.
I give kudos to the sanitation team for getting 21 years out of that piece of equipment.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I noted it is almost as old as I am.
Wow.
And that made the rest of the staff feel old.
All right, so here is just the water sanitation fleet. We are not proposing any vehicles for the next fiscal year, but these vehicles are more specialized equipment, so we are not recommending that they are a part of that leasing program. It would all be paid through the water and sanitation funds.
Okay, Mayor Village Board, I told you early on, if you caught it, that we'd be landing on this slide. Very powerful slide of showing our revenues and the expenditures that we went through here today. So just to orient everyone, so the far left-hand column, the funds, we talked about projects within these funds. And then you can see moving left to right, the various fiscal years. The costs that we're projecting, the projects that we just went through, costs that we're projecting here over each fiscal year. And then we get to the darker area where that's the 5-year total cost, to give you some idea and perspective of what those 5-year expenditures would be projected to be. Those are estimates. as I mentioned earlier. And then finally, moving on, again, we talk about funding. So the revenue that we have available to us. The top three, we just start with those. Those are the areas where, we're going to have to work collectively on that. Going back over to the fund column, capital projects, vehicle and equipment, MFT, and see the top two, and shifting over to the far right, top two, the funding sources that are available. None for capital projects, none for vehicle and equipment. There are some dollars that are available in the vehicle and equipment fund here to sustain us for the next 5 years. We've done the leasing program, which has helped us to save a few bucks, but most importantly, stretch our dollars out. The big concern is just that capital projects fund. We're able to keep it alive here with some building fund transfer, but that's only going to get us so far. So we've got a significant amount of future unfunded within the capital projects fund, not including what we're projecting for the next 5 years. Rolling down to the MFT fund, our motor fuel tax fund, there we've got the $5.5 million number that is needed to maintain our roads of where they are at right now. Within the dollars that we receive from the state, though, we're projecting that we're going to be much lower, and we talked about that within our slides earlier. So a funding source that we have right now is MFT revenue. That's per capita based. We went through various scenarios of issuing debt. Maybe it's a pay-as-you-go. There's a new tax that is implemented for roads, and we're paying as we go. So there are some options for us to explore. And I think that this is going to be one of those conversations that, again, once we get the new board seated, we've mentioned this in previous budget meetings, but we're going to have some direct discussions regarding these funds. So scrolling down, going back over to the far left-hand fund column, we touched on the money that we're receiving from the state in the rebuild money, water and sanitation. We have our rate study that we complete to make sure that we're not charging too much, we're not charging too little. We're able to actively and aggressively maintain our water and sewer infrastructure. I think we do a very good job with that. I commend the board, with the steps that we've taken here over the last few years of, completing the rate study, staying current with the rate study to make sure that our infrastructure and water and sanitation is maintained. The commuter parking fund that is stressed. I think most folks, if you've ever taken a train or you drive by the commuter lot, no one's parking there anymore. There's probably about, the chief gives me an update every few days and he says, hey, there's an extra car there in the parking lot today. We've hit the 30 mark, which is not anywhere near the plus or minus 500 cars that we see or we used to see on a weekday basis. So we've got some ways to fill that and help us maintain that until we get back into our normal revenue source for the parking fund. The bond fund, that was for the debt that was issued. We financed, as the board knows, we financed the new building, and we expect the majority of that money to go out the door over this fiscal year and next fiscal year. And then the Land Conservancy Fund, we chatted a little bit about that. We have projects within the next 5 years of slightly under $500,000, and we have more than enough revenue to maintain that park. So from a total perspective, our total 5-year expenditures, approximately $31 million, funding available $25 million. That's not unique. I mean, we obviously want to have more projects than we have dollars for, just in case grants come up.
Mm-hmm.
We fall rear end backwards into a bunch of money. We want to be ready. We want to know what the priorities are. The future unfunded, those are kind of, some of them may not happen in my lifetime. But again, we want to have that vision. There's a large number. I get it, $30 million. But again, that's why we have this meeting. We want to hear your comments, your questions, get your feedback, not only today, but over the next few weeks, even further as we go through the budget process. So there's a lot of information here. I encourage you to take a look at it and circle back if you have any questions. Anything immediate from the board members regarding this slide? Okay. Next. Revenue sources to consider. We're not approving any of these or going into detailed discussion about this unless any board members have any immediate questions. But want to, as we have in years past, want to get these in front of you as options. Want to make sure that you have options to consider. This is, I said it earlier, it's not tasteful. It's not fun for me or our staff to talk about new taxes. We don't want to do that. But the reality of the situation is both in the general fund and in our capital projects, our MFT, we're going to have to look at this. We are going to have to strongly consider some of these as options. There are options that both Mike and I, our finance director, are much more keen on than others within this list, but wanted to give you the entire list to just start you, get you going on thinking about these. So we'll continue this discussion at a later date. So.
Well, there's a lot of information to digest. I would strongly recommend questions, and be happy to meet with any trustee that would like to. Jake and I will sit down and kind of go over some of these things so everybody has a better understanding. So that when we go into the actual budget workshops, when we allocate funds and things, that we have a real good understanding of where everybody stands. I'd be interested in hearing what people are saying. I know Trustee Kraus was not able to join us today. I'd love to hear his insight on some of these things. I believe he told Jake yesterday that he liked the presentation, so that's good. So we want to make sure that everybody is on the same page and we have an understanding of what's going on. I'd like to thank Jake for an outstanding job. Chief Finland, thank you very much. You're going to start costing us more money.
Yes.
Due to the new state
It's not
mandate.
his fault. It's not his fault. Yeah. Yeah.
I get it. I give you grief about it, but Director Morimoto, outstanding job. This falls a lot on you, and we couldn't do this all without Courtney Sage. Courtney did an outstanding job. Thanks for stepping up and being part of the presentation. It was impressive. So Director Ducharme, you're our finance guy. You're going to help us make some of this stuff work. We will be making some difficult choices, but we rely on everybody to work together as a team. We've made some significant strides in a lot of the infrastructure that we've had in the Village of Cary over the last, well, since I've been sitting in this seat since 2013, that we've made some tough decisions. We've made some things that have really come to pass, and I really want to give kudos to our staff for coming up with the grants that they have. I mean, it's outstanding. And the millions of dollars we've had in grants over the last 8 years are just outstanding. And that's a huge savings to our taxpayers. And I don't think that they understand that these things have a real positive impact for their everyday life. So thank you all for putting together a great presentation.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mayor. Great work by our department directors, especially Eric and Courtney. There's so much work. It's hard to even put it into words of the work that goes on behind the scenes and the meetings and discussions that we have here to help you make informed decisions. I really appreciate the work that our staff has done with this. And I look at this as it's a great resource for our residents so they understand the vision that we have, that our staff, not the staff that are here, but the other staff members understand our vision for the community, not only next year, the next 5 years and beyond. So job well done.
Any other trustees have any other comments or questions?
I just would like to say thank you, reiterate what you guys were saying. These tools are very important for us from a planning standpoint, that we have to look at things and say, hey, we can't just kick the can. We got to make some hard decisions, look at where we're going, and I think that this tool is invaluable. So I'm very appreciative of all the hard work that went into it as well.
Okay, and no other questions or comments? I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Weinhammer,
Yes.
Collier,
Yes.
Cavelli,
Trustee Cavelli, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay,
Answer,
thank you.
yes, yes.
and Betts,
Yes.
and McAlpine?
Yes.
Thank you very much. We are adjourned.
Thanks, everyone, for taking time out of your Saturday. Appreciate it.
Thank you.